Welcome back to the Refuge podcast. Today, Josh chats with Jeannette Ban and Lola West, and I just absolutely loved this episode. They talk about the beauty of queerness, their coming out stories, their stories of coming together, and their time living in an intentional farming community, which changed everything about how they understand the divine and the land and what it means to be human. And I feel like it spoke to me in so many ways, particularly about the land and about, just engaging with folks in ways that are different than the norm, whether that's in relationships or whether that's through things like trees and nature and what it means to be fully present in the world. So I absolutely loved reflecting on this episode with Josh. You'll get to hear us talk about it at the end. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Refuge Pod. I'm so honored and grateful and excited to have two of my favorite human beings in the universe, Jeannette Ban and Lola West in the house. Woo woo! Welcome, friends. How are you?
We're doing good. Super excited to be here.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Josh. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I'm so excited for folks to get to hear a little bit about your stories today. So really, thank you for, who you are. You're somebody, both of you are people who I look up to. You're sheroes. And again, two of my favorite humans, just the way you show me the love of the divine and, how you love each other, how you love yourselves and other people. And so excited for you all to get to share a little bit today. Could you please just tell us a little bit more of who is Jeannette and Lola, please?
I grew up in West LA, and my parents are both immigrants from different countries. My mom is from Singapore in Southeast Asia, and my dad is from Hungary, and they met in the beautiful tapestry of West Los Angeles, and that's kind of where I find myself these days, in the intersection of those two cultures and America.
Thank you, Jeannette.
Yeah, my name is Lola West, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a foodie, a dog lover, a lover of this woman right here, Jeannette, and I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, which is in Ventura County. Not too far from LA and not too far from where I live right now, kind of just in the middle. And
that's our dog.
One
yes.
day,
Yes. Speaking of lover of dogs,
I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, which is not too far from Los Angeles and not too far from where I live now in Ventura. It's kind of in the middle. My dad is American and just, it comes from an Italian ancestry. And my mom is Panamanian and American. And so, I grew up very close to my mom and my maternal side of the family. And Jeannette and I just visited and met a lot of my family from Panama when we went 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We currently live in Ventura County, California, which is unceded Chumash territory, about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. And let's see where to start. I was born in West LA, and I grew up there. Both of my parents moved from different places to Los Angeles, and I really loved growing up steeped in this rich, diverse cultural quilt that West LA is, and have lived out here for 7 years now at this point, and really love being here together with Lola. That's who I am. Who are you?
I'm Lola, and I think it's important to note that our couple name is Jola.
That's right.
Yeah,
Jola in the house.
Janola.
Janola, sorry. Sometimes I get it wrong. I was like, why can't we be J-Lo? It doesn't work out the way you want it to. Yeah, I'm Lola, and I share this beautiful home with my partner Jeannette. And I also, well, no, not also. I grew up in Ventura County, not too far from where we live now, and spent a good chunk of my 20s in LA, which was really important to me to leave Ventura County for a little bit, even though, it wasn't too far, and moved out to Ventura about 6 years ago, and just love the life that we've built here in this community. We have like a really rich, loving, connected community here in Ventura, and we live with our 2 dogs, who are like my beloved soul friends, our beloved soul friends, and so yeah.
Hopefully, we'll save that for the next time we have you on the pod. We'll include them in it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, thank you for just touching the surface on your stories. Where you grew up and who you are. Like for folks who are interested, like how do you occupy your times during these days? Would love to hear more, please, too. And also, a question about like, obviously this is a podcast about spirituality. A lot of people coming from different places would love to hear too, like about that question of where you all find yourselves and maybe the traditions that you grew up in too, please.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, Josh. I think it all ties together, actually, for me at least. Coming out from Los Angeles to Ventura, 7 years ago, I moved out here to be a farm intern for a little organic vegetable farm in Santa Paula, California, and it was a little farm at the time called the Abundant Table, and it was an internship that merged both spirituality and farming and intentional living and social justice and weeding and food and all sorts of things, and that really busted things open for me. I come from a Presbyterian church in West Los Angeles, and grew up like really steeped in church culture, going to the youth group my whole life. My closest friends were all church folks, and so that really planted a deep seed in me. And coming out here and rooting my faith and my vocation in spirituality in the earth out here was such a transformative experience that I've stayed out here ever since. And I worked for the Abundant Table for a good 6 years. Met Lola on the farm. Hopefully she'll get to tell you about that later. And
we gotta have that cheese man. We definitely gotta include that.
Yep, some of that later coming. And now I work for the LA County Department of Health Services doing policy and communication work. But everything that I am really comes from those 6 years on the farm for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeannette.
Yeah, I would say so much of our story overlaps in so many ways because, you're my partner and we share life together, but also because the, inception of Jola was started on the farm. And like Jeannette mentioned, it's deeply embedded in who we are as individuals and also who we are as a couple. And so where I grew up in Ventura County, specifically Thousand Oaks, I live not too far from where the Abundant Table is located today, but my only interaction with farms was from like the Strawberry Festival, the annual Strawberry Festival, which happened here. And I was introduced to the Abundant Table community through a school project. And it was really at the farm that I kind of discovered or leaned more deeply into this idea of like sacred relationship with Creator and land and the overlap and like coexistence of that. And so in that way, the Abundant Table was truly transformational for me. And I don't work on a farm anymore. I work as a grant writer and communication specialist for a health and human services agency here in Ventura County. But we do still get our hands dirty and have a front yard homestead called Bread and Flowers Homestead, where Jeannette is like the farm manager, main planter, and I, after work, get to go outside and harvest and help pull weeds and stuff. So, yeah, that's a really long-winded way of saying that I am someone who has been deeply impacted, whose spirituality has been deeply impacted by my relationship with nature, the land, and also, yeah, I can't wait to get into that story and unravel it with you. How we kind of circled back to spirituality. Because there was a long time where it just didn't seem like that was in the cards for me.
No, I can't wait for you to touch more on that. And again, thank you both for scratching the surface a little bit again, on, you know, obviously we're giving the summarized versions, right, of your lives, but on your farm, what's the name of it again? The bread and what?
Our little front yard micro homestead farm is called Bread and Flowers.
Okay,
Homestead.
that's beautiful. I didn't know the name of it, but I remember last summer we came over, Grecia and I, you know, my partner Grecia and I, and we had dinner with y'all, and it was just like dirt, you know, it was coming together, and it's so cool to see the pictures. You know, we haven't unfortunately been able to see it in person yet, but we definitely got to include some pictures for, you know, folks who are watching this, of the beautiful Bread and Flowers homestead garden, which is, it's so cool to see. And again, like, this is something that I always learn from you and appreciate of you both, of how you really have incorporated, like, taking care of the earth and the connection, right, that we have to land, whether it's growing your own food or, you know, just understanding how pesticides and chemicals affect our environment, which is deeply spiritual. And I always, you know, admire how I continue to learn from you and how you inspire other people, you know, by the way that you all live your lives. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing a little bit. I feel like, you know, that's a huge part of y'all's story. Like, you, just to echo what you're saying, right? Obviously, not to mansplain it, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, dang, when I think about you all, that's like something that I so am inspired by both of you. So I'm glad folks get to hear that a little bit too, and would love to hear the Cheeseman now. How did you all meet? Who asked out who first?
Oh, yeah, who asked out who first?
That's your story, girl.
All right, let me break it down for you. So, I mentioned before that I encountered the Abundant Table Farm through a school project, and I think it was 2014. I was sitting in a classroom, and my teacher came over and said we had to have this service learning project, and I always loved the outdoors, so I was choosing between the hiking project, where we were going to do some trail restoration, or a farm. And I sent an email to both places, and the first one to respond to me 3 weeks later was the Abundant Table Farm. And I received an email that said, please get to the farm early. I have an appointment at 9 a.m. and I can't be late, and I want to show you around the farm. So I was really prepped to get there early. I didn't want to disappoint. I drove out to Santa Paula, which is where the farm was at the time, and I encountered this lovely woman who has, like, such a special place in my heart. Her name was Louise, and she's not a part of the Abundant Table Farm. And I said, hey, I'm here to volunteer. I don't know where the Abundant Table is. And I'm a communication major, so this next part is kind of like a big deal. I heard Louise say, they are in the round house over there. I looked in the distance and I was like, dang, that's really far. And then I looked down at my watch and I panicked because I'm supposed to meet with this volunteer coordinator before 9 o'clock, and we're pushing 8:50. So I run across the entire farm to this roundhouse, and I have to jump a fence to get there. I'm like, what kind of farm experience is this? So I'm like in my Converse, my Chucks, and I dressed up because I wanted to look like fashion forward that day. Fashion forward farming. And jump this chain link fence. I bust into this roundhouse building, and I was like, I'm here to volunteer. I'm supposed to meet with the volunteer coordinator, and they said, this is the school district. You're in the wrong place. The farm's back that way where I came from. So I run back in my Chucks, climb the fence, and I get stuck on those, like, you know, chain link, how it has those little things sticking up from it. I get stuck on there, and someone screams, "Hey!" And it freezes. And I was like, I'm a volunteer. I'm just here to volunteer. Later on, I found out that they thought that I was there either trying to use their porta potty and just running through, or that I was a pumpkin terrorist trying to blow the farm up. And so the person...
Wait, sorry. Can I pause you? Were those two like normal things?
I mean, there was a porta potty there, and I did run straight through. I didn't stop to use the bathroom, but none of them knew that. And I guess
in our back end, there was some like community drama that was happening where people were really upset that like a pumpkin patch wasn't happening that year, and there'd been some public discourse about it. So they warned us, like, watch out for people jumping the fence.
Yeah,
trying to cause some drama.
So that was me, Lola, the pumpkin terrorist.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I just had to ask.
So good. I was stuck on the fence. Everybody on the farm was kind of like, what the heck is going on? I was embarrassed. I had to come down and explain myself, like I got lost. And in the brown house, not the round house, was a group of people who were having an office meeting, and my volunteer coordinator, who set me out in the field, and I'm out there weeding by myself, when suddenly from the office I hear like an explosion of laughter, and it's them telling the story about me getting stuck on the fence. And Jeanette always says that if I wasn't stuck on the fence, she wouldn't have really talked to me.
We had a lot of volunteers come through, so there's no way of knowing if Lola hadn't gotten herself impaled on the fence if we would have had a conversation. But because she did, we felt so bad for her. We invited her to come out to lunch. We sat next to each other. We started talking, and
the rest is history.
Yes.
Or her story. It's our story.
Yes. Yes.
So that's like a long-winded way of saying, like, dang, thank God for that fence.
Yes.
Thank God for that fence. What seemed like a major inconvenience was like, it was a defining moment in my life. So
that's so beautiful. Such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. And I definitely, a lot of times we think about fences as obstacles or problems or, borders, but it's a beautiful story of how a fence could bring people together. How long ago was that?
2014. So we've been together a little bit.
For a while now. Yeah.
And Please, no, go ahead. I'm getting excited. I'm jumping forward a little bit. I want to, but you all recently asked each other to marry each other, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. You get the sirens. Woo woo. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that's like, we've talked about it, and that's one of like the cooler parts of being queer, identifying as queer and being in a queer relationship, and just kind of like being committed to flipping the whole structure on its head, is like, we can have two proposals. We can each have other to
Yes.
marry one another, even though, like,
Yes.
you know, I said yes 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Could you share a little bit too about like you each asked each other to marry each other, right?
Yeah.
we
And it was at separate times, like you said. Can you share a little more about the first one and the second one,
Yeah, sure.
please?
I got to go first. I asked her first, and she was actually surprised, I think, on her birthday on the side of the freeway in Big Sur.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it was just it was a beautiful experience, and also burst open a lot of things for both of us. I think the proposals and the engagement and starting to talk about like a wedding really put into clear definition like how much like of our relationship is in contrast to like this conventional heteronormative structure. And so it was a beautiful experience, and it was also like a really raw experience of reckoning with like who are we and what does this relationship mean beyond just the funness of getting to propose to each other. Yeah, and then you proposed to me a little while ago.
I did, and it did not go according to plan in any way, shape, or form.
Were there any fences involved?
You know what? One of the thoughts was like, I should do this at the farm, but I didn't want both to get labeled as like pumpkin terrorists. So I did it at the beach, which is somewhere that Jeannette loves, and you know, you're gonna hear about it more. But like, we love our dogs, so I was like, I gotta incorporate our dogs in this. I know this is so important, and that was a huge mistake. If I could do it over again, I would not incorporate
dogs.
them.
Don't include them in proposals.
Even though like one of our dogs looks super cute because I bought her a tuxedo pantsuit. That was like the only thing that went right was that she had a pantsuit. Everything else, they were just like barking and breaking champagne glasses and pooping in the middle of our photos. Like, oh, it was beautiful.
It's a real life. It's a real life, right?
That's super real.
The struggle is real, but
Yeah.
again, so beautiful. That both of you did this, and the love that you share. Again, I'm so inspired, and like the way that you both affirm each other. Like it's something that Grecia and I always talk about, and like I'm always like, to be honest with you, taking notes out of both your books because I think it's such a beautiful love that you both share. And so for you to both propose to each other, I mean, it only made sense. And, again, I'm so happy and excited for you both to continue to share this love journey together.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for sharing a little bit. You mentioned, Jeannette, that you grew up Presbyterian, right? And kind of, your journey. And Lola, would love to hear too, like if you could share. I know, right, because we're friends and I know your story a little bit, but like you grew up Roman Catholic, right? Pretty much like until like how old were you when you kind of came out of that tradition, and how long did you grow up in it?
And is a really great way to phrase it, actually. I came out of the closet and was escorted out, I'd like to say gently, not even gently. I was escorted out of the Catholic Church in a way. I was, on a surface level, deeply connected to that community. In that, like, I worked for the church, my mom worked for the church, I went to all-girls Catholic private school, and so I think a lot of the traditions, the rituals, the concepts, the, like, Catholic guilt, all of that was, and it still is in many ways, deeply embedded inside of me, but I came out in 2007. And that was right when Prop 8 and Marriage Equality Act was first put on the ballot. And also when it was, actually that was 2008. 2008 is when it was first put on the ballot. And I'm just coming into my own and figuring out like my sexuality and who I am. And, someone at the church found out, and churches, churches are a community, and communities, sometimes people band together and talk about things. And that was one of the things that they were talking about. And I was encouraged to meet with the priests there, who were really, lovely human beings. I worked with them. They were not my coworkers, my elder coworkers, but I knew them very well. And so meeting with them and talking about my sexuality was deeply uncomfortable. And at that time, I was given a choice not to act on my feelings, so not to engage sexually with another woman, or to go down a path of kind of like I would equate it to conversion. It was like a conversion light, just a lot of rhetoric around the sin. And it was really hard for me to be around people that I like had trusted, and to not feel welcome there anymore. So I think at that time, I didn't really see another way into religion or spirituality and God outside of that like weird structure that I like semi-constructed by myself and that my parents constructed for me. And so I just thought, I'm gonna take a step back from religion for a while. And I did. I took a good step back. I took a leap, a hop, skip, a jump. I was like, and really like didn't want to be a part of a community that didn't want me to be a part of a community fully in myself. And so yeah. And then through like I had my first girlfriend was Jewish, and she would take me to her synagogue all the time, and I was like, Judaism is beautiful. Like, hashtag Old Testament, let's stick here. They're very accepting of us, and that started to plant a little seed of connection to like theological roots back in my body. And I feel like that seed was watered and tended and cared for when I met Jeannette and the Abundant Table community, which is a farm and a farm church.
Yes.
And it exploded open every notion about religion and spirituality and like my place in community, in a Christian or spiritual community as a queer woman. And so yeah, that was good. That was some good trauma work that I'm still doing, to talk to like 19-year-old Lola and say like, hey, you can be queer and Christian. You can be queer and spiritual. Yeah.
Thank you, Lola, for sharing this. I know it's tough, right? Like I really resonate what you said about like that community that you trusted, that you love, that and to not feel accepted. Like I can only imagine. I've shared with you both, right? Obviously, similar kind of story coming out of a church family that I very much love, that my own biological family is a part of, right? Just because of like these differences in worldviews. So like I can only imagine how that could be, especially when you get your own biological family involved, and like it's tough, Sometimes I think church family can be almost closer than your own family, to many of us, and to have that trauma, like you said. I think it's I just want to honor you and thank you for sharing that. It's not easy to do, And you know what, I want to hear more about Farm Church too, right? To share with folks. But also want to hear if there's anything that you have to share, Jeannette, you know, in a similar vein, or also like what have been some resources, like you mentioned Farm Church, right? But like what has, you know, Lola, you mentioned Jeannette was somebody who helped you to like reconnect into your body, into your spirituality, you know, into who you are beautifully and wonderfully. So would love to hear, please. I know that was a long-winded question.
No, not at all. I think all of those questions are like tied up in each other. You know, I have this quote here that I wrote down because a couple of weeks ago, for June being Pride Month, we have started doing an annual Pride in the Watershed service here with our farm church. And it was just such a beautiful service for many, many reasons. But one quote that came out of that for me was from someone named Nehemiah Young over at Union Theological Seminary in New York. And this quote, I feel like just, you know, really sticks with me because there's so much pain and hurt inflicted by the church when it comes to queer people. Some churches, you know, or the dominant church, there's so much pain there. But I think this quote really speaks to how, in some ways, in some situations, it doesn't even touch that like molten core of faith. It's just pain it's pain that's connected and not connected to that. And so I'll just read it really quick. They say, queer faith is the unshakable knowing that our bodies are divine and welcomed, not just in the church, but on earth and in heaven simultaneously. It is the knowing that we need no one's permission to get close to God. And I think it's a long and winding answer to your question, Josh. But to unravel it a little bit, I think for me, like being a queer person and a person who is very spiritual and very grounded in some type of faith, that my queerness and my and communing with Creator and God is like, it comes from the same thing. It comes from the same place. When I'm feeling claustrophobic and tight and like crinkled up like a little foil ball and not able to plug into the source that gives me life and gives everything around us life, it's the same thing as not living into that queer life and identity and love. Queerness is so much more than just who you choose to fall in love with or spend your life with. It's more than that. It's expansiveness, it's magic, it's opening, it's big, it's huge, it doesn't fit into boxes, and it's colorful, you know. And I use those same words when I talk about faith and when I talk about God. So I find that there's been so much joy recently in this, not only reclamation of faith as a queer person, but rather exploring of faith as a queer person. What special life experiences and viewpoints do queer people hold in knowing God and seeing God in their bodies, in nature, that, you know, are not often found in dominant spaces? And how do we not see that as like some type of weird or strange or other thing, but rather like a gift and a resource to plug into and explore? Yeah.
Yes. We need some more sirens in here. That is so beautiful, Jeannette. Dropping Jeannette bombs. Love it. That was so beautiful and so eloquently put. Seriously, like I'm getting goosebumps. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you know, I keep on being reminded by queer friends that like there this is like so spiritual, right? Like and I love how you put it, how it's an expansion, right, of exploring faith. And like for folks that like might not be able to reconcile like how could you be queer and Christian or spiritual, like I love how it's not like that's not the question, right? It's like it's the question is like this is just expanding our worldview of the divine in the world. And thank you for saying that. Like that's such a beautiful quote that you shared too, and so thank you for all of it.
Mm. Welcome. Do you have anything else you want to add about Pride in the Watershed?
I mean, you just laid it out. You took me to church.
Yes, it took us to church for sure. But no, Lola, please don't be shy. If there's anything,
Yeah, I well, I think one kind of quote experience activity that we featured at our Pride in the Watershed was born out of a Twitter feed that like plucked at my inner heartstrings, and I was reading it on Facebook. I don't do that Twitter. But I was reading this Twitter feed shared on Facebook, and it was published by someone whose Twitter handle at the time, I don't know if it's so, Twitter handles can change, but their Twitter handle is Micaela Atencio, and they were writing about the idea of the creator about creation as something more than the binary or the extremes of like day and night or land and sky and everything that exists between there. And so I don't want to take up too much airtime reading it. We did that and it was beautiful, but I would just encourage anybody who's listening or watching to um, read who they shared, because yeah, it was really moving. And we did a little art activity where we had some of our younger queer friends also paint these two extreme polar opposites, and then inside we painted everything that exists in the in between. One example I think was um, night and day, and the time in between is the sunset and the sunrise. And just like thinking about that, and like, wow, when the world was created, when I was created, I wasn't meant to just live inside of the binary of day and night. Like, I am a sunrise or sunset. And yeah, I just am grateful that Micaela framed it that way, and think about that when I'm like doubting. Yeah, I remember the sunset.
Thank you, Lola. That's so beautiful, and we can definitely put that in the show notes for folks to check out. So thank you for sharing that beautiful resource. And just really want to ask again for folks that might be listening to this that are new to this idea, right? Of, again, it's not like I think what you're saying is like it's so basic and so profound at the same time, but it's very simple, right? It's like comes down to like our queer siblings and family like have so much to teach us, and especially about God. Like, are there any words of encouragement, or like for people that might be struggling, to come out, or that can't reconcile these dualities, or these multiple worlds coming together. Any words of encouragement or wisdom to share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think the first step of that journey for me was reading a book called, what was it called? Queer Love, I think, or shoot. It's by Patrick Chang, who's a queer theologian, and puts it very plainly. And so that would be a great resource for folks to start with, I think, especially because I find that so many affirming spaces are also very white spaces too, and of course the flavor, everything is different when in different cultures, and so it's been really helpful for me to find Asian or specifically Chinese centered Christian resources which are out there and exist, you know, around the world, because queer people are everywhere, and we know, you know, that the conversation getting stuck at like heaven and hell is such a is so stupid and dumb, you know.
Yes.
And I think also on a broader sense, spending time with earth and land has been a huge part of my own queer theological journey, queer ecology, and all of the lessons that are there. I don't think it's a coincidence that my coming deeper into relationship with God and with everything here in this world happened on a farm when my hands were tucked in the soil, and knowing the animals and the plants and the soil microbiome and the little seeds, and also all of the other voices and spirits and tenders of the land who came before we happened to plop down here in Camarillo. I think that the more that like both of us plug into our garden here, we come to know the ancestors and the indigenous people who tended to this space before that, and who were also queer and who also had spirituality of their own, and it's just this beautiful, massive web of life and relationship, and like, yeah, the earth is super queer. So
Yes.
there's so much love. I find like so many of my answers don't come from the Bible, but come from being out, and coming to know the lessons that the earth can teach us.
That's so beautiful. I don't have words. I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeannette. Anything to add, Lola, to that?
It's really hard to answer after Jeannette. I'm just like,
Yeah.
next time. No, I'm just kidding. I welcome any opportunity to go to the Church of Jeannette Ban.
Oh, yeah. Please sign me up. Can we do this every week? At least once a week.
Next time I'm bringing a cocktail.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got you.
I think, one piece of advice that I would give is that, like, something that's been deeply fulfilling for me is finding community and acceptance in community. And so I would encourage anybody who is on their queer journey and kind of wrestling with how to hold both spirituality and queerness in the same hands, recognize that there are communities of people out there who love and accepts them, and if it doesn't exist in the community where you were born, you have an opportunity to dismantle that system. And you can, if you have the energy and the time and the emotional capacity, you can be the voice of change in your community, or you can dismantle that community and rebuild your own. And it's not just communities. Like any system of oppression that is oppressing you, blow it up. Blow it up and build your own space where you can thrive, and invite people to see you thriving, because I think, that's when minds that are, they're not small, they're just minds that are enclosed can open. Yeah.
Thank you. Another Lola bomb. Just blow it up, literally.
Yeah.
Thank you both, and y'all are really bringing us to church today, with your just wisdom, and I just thank you again for being here and sharing, and is there anything else that you would like to share? I want to talk about the Radix project, which we're working on together, but anything else before that?
Just really stoked to have encountered, you and Grecia and your community and your knowledge and your lessons, which hopefully someday we will get to pull out of you on camera too. But,
oh yeah.
Just feeling really lucky to know you and to go through life with you.
Thank you. The feeling is so mutual. Thank you for saying that, Jeannette. And I really do consider you both sisters. Not just like you say that at church, but we're deeper.
Yes, for sure.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great segue too, to talk about Radix, right? Like, I've had the privilege of getting to get really close to you both, Grecia as well, as being a part of the Radix project. And really, like, in the last year during, this pandemic, we've been meeting once a week to work on this project together online. And it's been such a gift, even though we're in the trenches working, just to have that community, and connection weekly. So could you tell us a little bit more about the Radix project? And obviously I'm a part of it too, so I'm happy to share, but
I think it's your turn to go first, my love.
It's like trying to explain art to the artist. I'm like, take it away.
Yes.
But I think Jeannette and I'll leave this little space in case you want to just explain what Radix is, because I don't want to steal your thunder, brother.
No. Please.
All right. Well, I can tell you how we became involved with the Radix story sharing project. I think we got an email, in 2017 or 18. Something like that. We've been meeting with you on Wednesday for a long time, and it's been a long time and a good time.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
The best day of the week.
The best day of the week. We love Wednesdays. To be a part of this project that really gives the story sharing project where we're meeting people, what is it, at the intersection of the soil, the streets, the soul, and the
soma.
No, that's the soul.
I think sanctuary, the psyche.
Soul, throw all the S's in there. We're just intersecting in all kinds of ways, and engaging people to hear more about their lives and their reality. And a lot of it, I think, circles around environmental injustices, and we have had the pleasure of going with you to communities in Detroit, visiting communities in Detroit, visiting communities in Honduras, visiting communities here in Ventura County.
In y'all's community, yeah.
Yeah, and man, this question really put me on the spot, and I'm sorry, it's everywhere. I hope you edit this part out, but
No.
I would say that one of the things that drew me to the Radix project in the beginning was your enthusiasm and passion for this work. And so to see the evolution, how it's gone from Radix to this podcast is really exciting for me to be a part of, because I think that you specifically, Josh, are an energy that just like holds space and brings light and like amplifies voices in a way that is like a unique gift. And so I'm just really stoked to do this work with you. And I think it's difficult to stand in solidarity with a community or a culture or an ideology that you have no context for if you don't know the person or you've never encountered the culture. It's hard to stand in solidarity. And so for me personally, like these encounters, meeting these people and listening to their stories has broken me open and changed the way that I see the world, because like I can get stuck in here in this tiny little space inside of my head and my community and my state of California, the United States, you know, I can get stuck there. And so I appreciate that, like, yeah, meeting these folks explodes that, if you will.
No, I love that. Thank you.
And I think it's, you know, coming, I know that the Radix videos and media and all of that is intended to be a resource for young people specifically who are hungry for something at the intersection of faith and vocation and struggle, and specifically for people of color as well. And I think that that's really what makes me excited about the project, is being able to create something that sometimes feels like it's missing, you know, or that it's a really niche area, and that when you find someone else who is working there, you got to stick with them and you got to make that connection and you got to support each other, because it's hard work and it's long work and it's for decades, and those roots are really deep. So I see Radix roots, those connections all fitting together so perfectly.
Yes. No, thank you both for sharing a little bit about your experience. But I want to really thank you both and honor you for being such a huge, important part of the team. You know, like just giving a quick background of kind of how the project started. It started right with a grant that we received from the Forum for Theological Exploration. Shout out to the FTE. And like we knew that we wanted to create a resource, like you're saying, Jeannette, right, for young people who are trying to explore like the connections of faith and social justice work, and really around like taking care of Mother Earth, right, taking care of their communities, and we knew that like a lot of these resources were through a specific social lens, right, very white, like to echo what y'all are saying. And so it's been so amazing to again work with you both, because you've really like we had this dream, but you all have been like the enablers of that dream to like really put this all together. And of course with the other people on our team, right, Daniel, Bethany, Gabby, like all of us coming together with our unique gifts. It's been so cool to really like see even just our first video, right, we're like on video 1 of 2 that we have in the queue, and hopefully more to come. But it's like, just like, I remember that first time we had that, like the first version of our first video, and it was like, oh my God, like we've been working on this for so long. Right. And it's so cool to see like the fruits of it. And then, you know, like somebody mentioned this the other day, that we were doing a screening, right, in y'all's community at with high school students and, folks that were from the community that really knew it. And it was like so nerve wracking, right. To do, I'll speak for myself, but like, it's like, show and tell, but you're like, the toy that you're showing is like made by the people you're showing it to, right? Like, and so, but they were so affirming, and one of the leaders there said like they really appreciated how we have used this platform to amplify the voices of the community, and that's what we're hoping to do. And again, like, wouldn't have been able to do it without y'all's leadership and teamwork. So thank you both for this. And of course, we can link it up for folks to watch this video that we're talking about in the show notes, and can't wait to see how we continue to grow the project together.
Yeah, most
well
definitely.
said. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you both. Again, kind of just being mindful of your time. Want to kind of conclude here and just open up the floor for anything that you all want to share, any ceremony, benedictions, kind of closing words here, anything on your hearts.
You had a benediction for us, right? Gonna bring it. You've been taking us to church this whole time. I feel like,
Yes.
I want to bring it home.
Oh yes.
This is from our Pride in the Watershed liturgy again. It was kind of our invitation into the service and into the space. So I will, and I should give you this link. It's on the Union Theological Seminary website, the school website. It's a beautiful project that the school did of collecting kind of little snippets of queer students and faculty talking about their faith and their ministry and how they are connected and how they complement each other. So I would encourage everyone to check it out because it really left a beautiful impression on me.
We will link it up. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. This is from Dr. Sue Yan Pak. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath and listen to these wise words. My faith lives in the interstices of my body, in the tune of a familiar hymn, in the feverish desires, in the cool assurances of the heart, in the well-practiced vows of honor to the ancestors, and in the spirit-filled tears. My body is and was the container that held and nurtured my faith. Being queer is like that too. It's how I live out my life in my body with authenticity and truth, refusing the either or binary, my erotic desires and my faith desires praying together in tongues with logic of its own. As we show up in the fullness of who we are, both queer and faithful, we together enact liturgy, public work of the faithful people. At family tables, in pulpits, in classrooms, in public and movement spaces, we show up, fully present, to be seen and to be counted. Won't you join me in this sacred liturgy? Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jeannette. So wonderful. Yeah, love that so much, and we'll definitely have that for folks to see that resource. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yes, I again thank you both for the time, and just want to wrap up with these, quick hitter questions, rapid fire questions here that we like to ask to our guests. And again, you're some of our first guests, so again, so honored to have you on. But if you could choose, friends to spend some time at the table with, they could be here present or have passed on into the other world, who would they be?
Do you have some for this?
I think you do.
Okay. I was thinking about this because, spoiler alert, you sent this question over, and right before this, I was like, who are the 5 people?
And it doesn't have to be 5; it could be more or less too. But
okay,
I did say 5 though. You're right.
But am obsessed with everything that this wonderful woman makes on her Facebook channel, and her name is Sun Young Longest, and she makes beautiful Korean dishes, but all these dishes. So I would hope that she would come over and we could cook together. And Octavia Butler would be another one. Favorite sci-fi writer, and I was thinking also like my great grandmother, because like I have never had a conversation with her, and her name was Carmen, and I would like to get to know her.
Yep.
That's what I got.
I would add my 5 people to your 5 people so we could just have a massive dinner party.
Oh yeah, that's totally acceptable. There's no rules here.
Yeah, and it would be Lola.
Oh well, yeah,
You'd have to be there.
of course.
And you'd also have to have some part in cooking the food because Lola is a magnificent chef.
Yes, she is.
And it would also be both of our grandmothers from Singapore and from LA.
Could they speak the same
They
language?
can speak the same language in this world.
I love it.
And that's kind of it. I was just thinking how fun it would be if our grandmothers could meet each other and spend some time over food together.
That would be a badass dinner table for sure. A lot of fun stories, I'm sure. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. And some delicious food, right? You're making me hungry just talking about it. So, yeah, this is a question we like to ask. If there's any like people that you'd recommend, again, we're just starting the podcast. You know, if there's anybody comes to mind, and of course, we always ask if you know that person, if you can help us get them on. So, any recommendations for the Refuge Pod?
Yeah, we were thinking, we are all part of a little Lectio Divina group, and so there's just so much wisdom in that group. So I would love to hear what they think about what they have, their answers to these questions. Would be my vote for folks in that group.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And I was
Jeanette.
thinking, oops, sorry.
No, I was just saying that's a great idea. I love that. We got some badass people in that group for sure.
And I was thinking Daniel Deep Castillo.
Ooh.
I
Oh,
welcome any opportunity to listen to his voice and his thoughts, you know. Ooh, I love him.
Daniel, the man, the myth, the legend. Oh yeah. We definitely got to have Daniel. And for folks who don't know Daniel Castillo, he is an amazing storyteller, media savant, among many other things. And he's a person that's he's part of our RADX team and always teaching us so much. So yeah, so much wisdom. Thank you for saying that. Definitely, there are a bunch of great recommendations, and can't wait for folks to sign on to this and to have them on. So just concluding with the last question here, how would you both define refuge?
Yeah, I'll go first before Jeanette brings it home. I think that to me, refuge, I see like a welcoming place, like a deep breath, and somewhere where you could just kind of like be yourself, where you can lean into the full expression of who you are, and be.
Yeah, well said. Yep. Somewhere where your soul can be still and rest and find peace.
Oh yeah, love it. Thank you both for who you are and for bringing us to church and for just sharing a little bit about your stories today. Love you both. You all are amazing. Thank you. And yeah, it's been such a gift. So
for us too, thank you
So much so.
for hanging out with us and being your bright beautiful yellow shirted self
The-
here with us.
I had to bust out the special shirt for y'all today. Thank
Thank
you.
you, John.
Thank you both. Yeah, and again, this is the first one. Look forward to future times to collaborate on these projects.
Oh my gosh. So I totally love this conversation, as I mentioned in the intro, Josh. So I'm
Yes.
super excited to debrief it with you. So the first thing that stood out to me that I just loved hearing was the story of Jeannette and Lola's proposal. So like their double proposal, which was
Mm,
so cool. And it
yes.
really had me thinking about this notion of queering, right? The idea of queering something, of
Mm,
divesting from the way it's quote unquote traditionally been done, or like the quote unquote normal, way of doing things. I love that they proposed both of them like to each other, right?
yes.
That's something that you don't see in a lot of traditional relationships, which is, I think, such a picture perfect description of what it means to be queer, to queer something, to turn things on their head, to add spice and creativity and life to it, right? And
Yes.
I think this is particularly why it's important for those of us who are straight to listen to queer stories or to learn from queer folks. I feel like we can learn so much about what it means, like I mentioned in the intro, to be fully alive and fully present in this world.
Mm,
Talking about the proposal, I'm a straight person, and we had a very traditional proposal. My husband proposed to me, how it's traditionally been done. But I wonder, like, what would it have been like if I would have been, mentally or just whatever, had the freedom to see that in a new way or in a new light, right? Like, what sort of liberties and what extra joy might I have been able to experience in my life
mm,
that I would not have known had I not learned from or heard from queer stories, right? Yeah, and I feel like I think about this in terms of other very traditional things like complementarianism, for example, right? Like the man rules. I feel like
mm,
in those situations, it's not just the women who are oppressed and suppressed, but the men experience that too, because there's so
yes.
much pressure and so much expectation and standards that need to be met for men, that they lose out too, right? And so I
Exactly.
think about this when we live in a way that heteronormativity, right, is the only way that we see things, or patriarchy is the way that we our worldview. I mean, there's so
Mm,
much that we lose with that. There's so much um, cultural expectation, so much pressure, so many things, yeah, that we experience and that we lose out on. But what if we, saw things through a queer lens? We would experience so much more joy and so much more freedom. And that leads me to sort of my favorite quote that Jeannette said. And she said that queerness is more than who you choose to marry or fall in love with. It's
mm,
expansive. And I
mm.
absolutely adore that, because that is the one word that I think of when I think of, or when I even just hear their stories, this word of expansive.
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Kat. And definitely, like, to your point, right, about how I think it really does, when we kind of put people in boxes. And Jeanette was totally talking about that too. I remember during that time
Right.
how we put people in boxes. We even put God in boxes. And I think
Yeah.
it is like a way of not only marginalizing, but it robs us of fully understanding each other as human beings, the diversity and the beauty of creation, of
Right.
culture, and of just, I really do think, understanding the divine, right? Like
Hmm.
that mystery of who the divine is, and the mystery of
Right.
who we are as human beings. And again, uh, I love how uh, just seeing, being really good friends with Jeanette and Lola, like, you know always being reminded of this, of their beautiful relationship and that love, which, at the end of the day, I think that's what God is love, right? So to like
Yeah.
see God through them, in the way that they love each other, in the way that they love their friends and family, and like just such a beautiful reminder, as you're saying, Kat, of like this queerness being a really affirmation of
Mm.
you know who people are, but also, like, I think, as also being somebody who's straight, right? I think we can learn so much, right? If we have ears and eyes to see, and really just humility, right?
Yeah.
And obviously too, to really just really quickly riff off of that, like I think also like especially give a preferential option to our queer
Right.
family, right? Knowing that especially in Christian circles, and in certain traditions, we have like really demonized and we have like not allowed these people to be fully who they are. And by
Right.
doing that, I think as a world, as humanity, we have not allowed all of us to be fully who we are. But of course, there's so much, hurt and trauma and baggage. And so like definitely I think not only like learning from them for our sake, but for the sake of healing,
Right.
right? For the sake of, the healing that needs to happen from the, marginalization and the hurt that we've caused through toxic
Right.
theology.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. There definitely needs to be a healing, just a general healing that needs to happen, because so much of traditional Christianity, in the way that many evangelical types of Christianity, has done way more harm
Mm,
than has done any good to so many marginalized identities, but
right.
particularly LGBTQIA plus folks. There have been yeah, and I always think of this. I love that this thought of how it's not our job to be like the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy
Mm,
Spirit is the Holy Spirit. And I think of that so much when it comes to folks who are just anti anything, right? Christians who
mm,
are anti, first of all, I love that you mentioned, yeah, just like love, right? Obviously, like we just need to like, the love of God, that
mm,
a lot of Christians don't live by. But
mm,
also just this and you also mentioned humility. It's also this arrogance to
mm.
sort of speak for the Holy Spirit or be the Holy Spirit in the world. And I
Yes.
think that yeah, there definitely needs to be a lot of healing that needs to be done. And also yeah, we need to see God in this expansive way that Jeannette mentioned. That's the God that I've been in search of, or the God that I've been
Mhm.
sort of chasing after, is this expansive, no holds barred type of God that can be found, which I love that they have this connection to the land, because it's a God that can be found, in rocks and in trees and in, you know, marginalized, particularly marginalized identities. And it's this God that
Mhm.
we just never even could possibly dream of, which is
Mhm.
also funny because in so many ways of traditional evangelicalism, it's weird to say that God is in the rocks or the trees, or, God is only in the Bible, whatever. But then if you read scripture, like God is called a rock, and like God is called like a tree
Yeah.
of life. So it's
Yeah.
like, if God is a tree of life and a rock in the Bible, why couldn't we talk about God that way now? That really makes no sense. But yeah, so
Mm.
I just love this expansive God that we get through Jeanette and Lola's story, and in this conversation that you had with them.
Yes. So thank you all again for sticking with us for another episode, and can't wait to see you all in the next one. So take care of yourselves. Peace.
Bye.